So we got cut off a little there. So that was that marathon, and I did quite well in terms of book distribution, and I was like racing Gadai Garanga, who was in another party, and because we had the motorhome, we could only do small books, we couldn't carry big books. So I had to do lots of small books to make up the points, because the books have points. Gadai Garanga, on the other hand, was only doing Krishna books. So every book he was getting a point, and he'd be doing like 100, 150 a day, like clockwork. So we were racing each other. So out of the two of us, he beat me, okay, and I was second. So because of that, we both get sent to Mayapur for Krishna's, for Srila Prabhupada's centennial in 1996, and the installation of the smaller Panchatattva deities before the big ones came. So that was a fantastic experience. I was in Mayapur. It was fantastic, and Tribhuvannath was there as well, so that was really, really nice, because Tribhuvannath would come quite regularly to Scottish temple. You know, he would come to get some funds and things for his own preaching in Africa and the things he did, and he would give class, and he would go in Harinam with us and things, and it was always very exciting. Tribhuvannath was like, he was on the ball, you know, he was very good, he was a nice devotee, and he was very serious, and he was just nice to be around. So he was also there, and because we were from Scottish Yatra, then he would come and speak to us, so that was quite nice. So the whole experience, Mayapur, Vrindavan, was a very nice experience. And then after that, I went, for many years after that, I had been in Vrindavan many times, and that, for me, that was great. I haven't been for a long time now, because I have family and things, and but it was a nice place. I like to go, Vrindavan. So yeah, that was just like one instant, the book distribution. But just because book distribution went for many years, I was mainly travelling in motorhomes with different devotees, Prabhupada Charan and Dr. Krishna, and after Guru Bihari had we weren't on the programme with him anymore in the motorhome. I was in other motorhomes with other devotees, and we were travelling Sankirtan. So I'm trying to think of little things. Yeah, going back to earlier days when I had first joined, in my kind of ignorance, I didn't really know what I was doing. And when I joined the temple, it was like a week before the Christmas marathon in 1992. So I didn't know anything about the Christmas marathon. I just joined the temple. So Balabhadra's wife, Mother Rantanjini, she was around then. Of course, she'd had some cancer in her brain. She'd had some operation. So her body wasn't functioning very well, and she would give me service. I was doing service because I was in like the building trade, being a plumber and that. It was handy. I knew how to use tools. I knew how to fix stuff, anything. I was good at doing this stuff. So she was getting me to do things for the temple and put up like little. It's always for the devotees. Ever know, do this for the devotees. Devotees will like that. Putting little rings up to hang their cups up and stuffs like that, you know. So I would do this service then, and then for that, leading up to that, from the 22nd of November, of course, that little week leading up to the start of the marathon, and I was out the books. And after that, of course, when we come home, we would sit, and sometimes we'd get a chance to serve prasadam. And Mother Rantanjini, in the course of that time, when her body was deteriorating, herself, she was getting, I guess, at that time I didn't know anything about, but now I'm a little bit older. It's obvious from the way she was a very devoted person. She was very devoted to her spiritual master, devoted to her husband, devoted to the holy name, devoted to serving the devotees. She was like a humble soul. I didn't have much connection with her, like emotionally, because I didn't live in the temple, but other devotees who had been around for a while and obviously saw her as like a family member. She was like the mother, you know, like that, because the guru and the wife, they become like the father and the mother. So she had looked after the women and the men. So they had a deeper relationship. I didn't. No, she was just a woman who was asking me to help. But I had been around a few times in the earlier days. Then when Mother Rantanjini, she had these like, I don't know what the Sanskrit for it is, but when you shift from external consciousness to internal consciousness. Now, as a young devotee, I don't know anything about, you know, I didn't know anything about anything. You know, we're not the body, we're the spirit soul. Krishna's in Goloka Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada wants us to distribute these books. That's all I knew. I didn't really know the philosophy. You know, I didn't. Although I'd read it, I hadn't studied. I didn't know anything about it. So this was something very bizarre for me. Because at night time, sometimes I'd be serving Balabhadra and serving prasadam and things, and I'd be sitting at the side where they would sit in the seats. and she would drift into this kind of, where she would talk in a, I wouldn't want to say a different voice, not the voice she normally speaks in. Vallabha would be asking her questions and things, and from what I understand now, of course, from then, and it was, and if you read the book, This Simple for the Simple, I think Vallabha mentions some of these things. I don't know where some of that's not in the book, but I was there when it was going down, you know, although I didn't understand it at the time. It was an impetus for me to have faith in the process, that actually just simple devotees, you know, which are not in the limelight, in the sense that not in the institution's limelight, and maybe in Krishna's limelight, but certainly not in institution limelight, and they're not like a guru or a spiritual, you know, these kind of things, not like somebody who is well known and wherever they go, people wouldn't. She was just a simple servant. That simple person like that could be so attached and so involved with the spiritual realm while still here in the material world. So I don't know anything about it, because like I was only there, I only experienced a few things. I heard her speak about a few things, and I thought, whoa, I didn't really know what's this going on, you know. So that's as much as I know. But it was only later on when I heard about how this can happen, that people drift from external consciousness and they go into like consciousness by which they are made aware of their occupation, as it were, their service in the spiritual world. So that does go on. People, devotees, you read about it. So I was.
Can you be more specific?
No, I can't really remember the specifics, and sometimes I think the specifics that are in my head from that long time ago, that those specifics are based on, because I've read the book so many times, and I heard from other devotees, and I'm thinking I kind of take that and I kind of fix it onto the memory I've got, and I think so. I don't really remember. I don't really remember some of the things she was saying. I just remember the atmosphere then, you know, and it was different. And at that time, I wasn't confused. I was more like intrigued. What's
I seem to remember what the book says is that Mother Radharani was kind of like helping Mother Yashoda to take care of Krishna's lunchbox or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's I don't remember hearing. I don't remember hearing that Mother Radharani was speaking any of these things. Okay. I just remember when I was there, I remember her shifting that kind of thing, you know, like she would be speaking in a different kind of voice. I don't really remember the details. I think I do, but sometimes when I look back, I think maybe it's because I've read the book and I've heard other things from other devotees at the time when it was all, because I was in travelling Sankirtan after that, and I was travelling quite a lot, so anything I ever heard always came second hand. And when she left her body, when all the devotees were there having kirtan, when she left her body, I was coming back from Sankirtan in the motorhome. I remember we were told to come back, and it was really snowy, and we were coming back in the motorhome, and we didn't get back in time. By that time, Mother Radharani had already passed, and her body was there. Now for me it's quite strange, because I'm only a young devotee, like a couple of years in the movement. I'd not even seen a dead body, let alone, yeah, I'd never seen I'd never seen a dead body. So for me this was a strange concept, that the body is left, I'm saying the body, Mother Radharani was left kind of sitting there on like a table with garlands round her and in this room. But one thing I do know, when you're in the room was like electric. Just something happened, you walked in like bzzz, wow, you could feel it immediately. And we just had to go in, we were asked just go in and chant. Oh, okay, I'll go in and chant. When you chant, everyone was like clear, it was like clear, you know, as if like it was like it had on the door, no, mind, do not enter. When you walked in, like, whew, it was a different experience. And I remember, go see circumambulate Mother Radharani's body, because that's what we're told to do, circumambulate the body, touch her feet, which was quite strange because she was a dead body, you know. When I was young, it was just a dead body, but for me it was a dead body. But I remember that when I put my head to her feet, you know, because I saw some of the devotees do that, and her skin smelled of flowers. It wasn't the room or the it was her skin, you know. And you hear about this, how purified people, when they leave the body, their body smells like flowers. So I smelt that, I thought, wow, you know. So later on, of course, when you're reading, you come across these things, you think, oh yeah. So this personality was not an ordinary personality. Of course, nobody's an ordinary personality. You, I, all devotees, all of us are servants of Krishna. So that's not an ordinary. We're not ordinary personalities. We're certainly not these bodies. But the point I'm making is that in their own personal sadhana, in their perfection of their sadhana, it's not like ordinary to come to that point where you transition from here to the spiritual world. That's a practice. It's a particular mindset, particular level of devotion in the heart. So you have what's the word? Is it reverence? Like that somebody has actually attained that level. Of course, she went through a lot of suffering because of the cancer and her body getting paralysed and things. But still, the outcome is that you don't return to get another body to suffer something else like we all do, So that was like, and that was in my young days. Let's say that was 94, so I'd only joined temple in 92. So these things were all like little things that happened that increased my faith. Things that I saw outright, things that you might only ever read in a book but never experience. So I'd actually experienced that. And when Tribhudranath came for the, what we call a funeral, because we had to you're in the UK, so you have to have the men in black come with the coffin and all that, and we're all walking in like this with a big, we're very sorry looking face, and we're having this massive kirtan in the temple room. Mother Ratanjini's body's in the temple room, Tribhudranath's leading the kirtan, we're jumping in the air, and everybody's like, oh, Hare Krishna, and it must have looked very strange for these people coming in all dressed in black, looking very, oh, somebody's died, and we're not looking like somebody's died at all, we have a kind of reverse mentality. But anyway, the point I'm making, Tribhudranath was saying that he'd only ever experienced that atmosphere before when somebody was leaving their body, and he said he experienced it when Prabhupada was leaving his body. He experienced a similar environment, a similar experience, energy. So that was like coming from someone who'd, because obviously for him, he'd never experienced that ever until he saw Prabhupada leave his body. Like you don't know what that experience is. You might read about it, but you don't have the experience. So Tribhudranath had already had that experience. So I was having a similar experience with Mother Ratanjini, and he was verifying that what he experienced was similar to Prabhupada. So I'm not putting both devotees on the same level. I'm just making a point that the experience was very it was a transcendental experience. It wasn't like a mundane death. It was a leaving of the body and a transcendence. So I was happy to be a part of that. Although I don't have it like at the forefront of my mind. I only remember because I'm bringing it up now. It's not something I think about all the time. But when I do think about it, I think, I feel. What's the word? I feel very respectful that I was able to be placed in that position. The same way when I went to Vrindavan and Mayapur. I mean, you read later on that it's very fortunate. It's very fortunate to come in contact with devotees and then be involved in all these kind of activities which are impetuses for our devotion. Like meeting a spiritual master, associating with Vaishnavas, going to the holy places, and these things, bathing in the rivers, and although these are secondary, but chanting the holy name, of course, mainly. So that was one experience from Mother Ratanjini, and of course, life in the temple was such. We had it was just, that's what it was, festivals, and we were book distributors. And that's just what we did. We collected money and we distributed books to maintain us and maintain the temple and maintain the book distribution and maintain the printing of books. And so we just lived, that's just the life we lived. And then we, every now and again, we had all the festivals, the like Vaiṣṇava festivals, and that was our life. It was full on. Somewhere along the line, of course, then I stepped out of that. I got married, and that's another kind of like, how can you say, that's another part of the journey. Some people stay within the ashram, but for most they move out and they find some situation that's more fitting for them to practice their spiritual life. And so I moved out the ashram, I married, and then I didn't bring my wife back to the community. At that time, Prabhupada Vani, who was our temple president, he came to us in Edinburgh where we were staying with a big bag of samosas and pakoras and things. He came with Kunti, actually, Mother Kunti, Balabhadra's daughter. They both came to the house, their flat, and they just nice to see them, and they were speaking, and they invited us to possibly move back into the community. So we didn't really know what we were going to do. We didn't really know what we were going to do ourselves. We were just working in Edinburgh and just living. We were going to the Nam hut, and we ran a little program in our house, and it was quite nice, you know. So when we heard that, we thought, okay, we'll go and we'll have a look. Prabhupada Vani said, we've got a nice house for you. And of course, when we got to Krishna, because Krishna, they owned lots of houses in the street, because through the years we had bought all the properties up leading up to the temple. There was this new set of houses that were all newly renovated. So I thought, well, we were just living in some kind of crummy 2-room flat. So to be offered a really nice house, I just said yeah. That was my motivation. It was, so we transitioned from Edinburgh slowly, and we came to live in the community for a few years. And then, how many years? I don't know the actual specifics, but we stayed there for a few years, and our kids grew up a little bit when we were younger. There in the community, it was nice. The same thing was going on. We were just doing service. I was doing mainly maintenance because I'm a kind of handy man. I was helping Prabhupada Prana, who then became the temple president because Prabhupada Vani left. And I was doing maintenance and then helping out with the deity worship for years, which was really, really nice. I got to serve the deities, Shish Kontai Marpur Shashi, and dress the deities, cook for the deities, and also worship with the shalagrams. And I was doing the shalagram puja, and like all the devotees they were doing, it wasn't just like myself. There was many devotees involved in the service. But that was just, it was really, really nice. We did still help him because we had lots of Tulsi there then as well, and we were doing these things. My wife was helping with Tulsi, and it was this kind of simple life. And then we left and we moved on, and I ended up here in Leicester some years later, and that's really the kind of story. Now I'm just trying to, as I've said to many devotees, Krishna, I'm just trying to reinvent myself now. Because living in the ashram, you become a particular type of devotee and a particular type of kind of mode of practice and worship. And when you move out, well, for me anyway, I don't know for anybody else, just my own particular, because it's me, it's getting filmed. For myself, it was very difficult leaving the ashram. I really struggled. I struggled with one with guilt for some reason. I felt like it was the wrong thing to do. It didn't really go well with my family. You're living with a family, you're trying to encourage a family, and all the time you're feeling like you shouldn't be here. It took me years to overcome that and realise I just changed position. It wasn't something wrong I did. It took me years to overcome that in the mind, and that was one. Another thing was the practice. You're living in a kind of temple situation. You're surrounded by devotees. It's easy to rise in the morning. You've got a morning program because you don't have to like go to work, and there's the whole dynamic changes, and it took a long time to get used to that. I really struggled with that, and also just dealing with children. I can't say I'm the best. I can safely say I think I failed there, but dealing with children and try to encourage them and just in their life, it was a real thing. That was a real struggle for me in the beginning. So it took many years, maybe 5 or 6 years before I kind of settled down a little bit. And now for the past, I've been out the temple now the temple confines now, the community for maybe 10 years, I think. And in all those years, I've slowly been actually trying to reinvent myself. Try and become like the devotee I have to become, the kind of person I feel comfortable with as a devotee in my practice, what service I can do, and amongst having to work and make money to maintain my family. So So for me, that's been a bigger journey. That was a bigger journey than the temple.